Hello, 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 and thank you once again for tuning into my podcast, Outside the Box, where myself, Stephanie K, also known as Sage the Coach, a multi certified life and relationship coach, I specialize in growth and transformation, likes to reveal how God is bigger than the boxes that we typically put him in. And so my podcast usually comes on Fridays at 12:30 p.m. every week. I have not been here for the last couple weeks. I had some scheduling stuff come up and it was just got really chaotic. But I'm back now, and so I'm ready to dive into some topics that would help people understand their walk with God or just a bit better. Because as I like to say, life is very, very hard, very, very hard, and we need all the help that we can get. And so this is my contribution, try to help people understand to navigate life a little bit better and actually grow and transform into the person that God created them to be. So you can also catch my podcast on the Entertainment Theater app. You can download that at the Google Play Store, the Apple Store, and you can also watch it online. You can also watch it on Roku, but you have to download the app. The app is for independent creators. And so support our indie authors and indie influencers and podcast hosts and things like that by downloading the app and not just checking out my show, but other shows and other content they have on there as well. So also be sure to make sure you like, follow, and share my content because there's really no use in me trying to do this to uplift people, to encourage people, to help people find their way if nobody is watching it. So you can help support me and what I'm trying to do by sharing my content. Click subscribe button, click the follow button, whatever platform you're watching me on. And for the platforms that you can watch me on, I am on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Twitter, now known as X. So yeah, that's where you can find me at. And so, but yeah, so that's it for my little bit of intro. For those of you who are interested in my coaching services, you can also visit my website, www.unveilingthespirit.com, where you can find out about my coaching services, sign up for a free session, check out my upcoming courses. I do have courses coming up. Actually, one just started this week. It's called Improving Personal Relationships. If you want to sign on to that or even jump in for just one free class so you can check it out and see what it's about, you can also reach out to me for that as well. Um, so let me dive into the topic for today. So the topic that I want to kind of dive into today is about, it's called the problem with healing or the trouble with healing. And so I wanted to talk about this because, a lot of the stuff that I talk about comes from, just observations in my environment, stuff that I'm going through, conversations that I've had throughout the week or recently and things like that. And something that has really resonated with me this past couple weeks is how complicated healing can be. And so we all need some healing in some sort of areas in our life, whether it's from grief, whether it's from, abuse or disappointment or whatever the case may be. We're all kind of traveling this path of life and we get bumps and scratches and wounds along the way, and we need healing. And the areas that we're not healed in become, they end up being kind of barriers to our growth along the way. And so it's really important that we tackle these things. And a really big part of like being a Christian for me, and I don't know if you guys remember, but I just recently got a tattoo on my arm, and one the tattoo I have is Psalms 147 verse 3, and it says that God heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wound. And so the reason why I had that tattooed on me is because that has been a significant part of my relationship with God, is my healing. Like, I'll be very, very honest and tell you that when I came to God, I was jacked up, like really, really jacked up. Sometimes I'm still jacked up, but I'm much, much better than I was. And so that's really been a significant part of my relationship with God. So as you become a Christian, God kind of begins to walk you through this growth process or this transformation process. And a lot of that has to do with you kind of healing from some things. And so, he brings certain things to your attention. He lets you know that you have some problem areas that you need to deal with. Of course, it's up to you to deal with them or not and kind of walk with him on that journey or fight him or ignore him. And I personally, I think that when you see a lot of people who become Christians that end up walking away from God, this is precisely the reason. because he starts knocking on your door about some things that you don't want to deal with. And when he starts doing that, he starts trying to show you things about yourself that you don't want to see. And because when he starts doing that and starts touching on your wounded areas, a lot of people start backing up, because this stuff is really deep and it's really scary. And it's, the Bible talks about guard your heart with all diligence, because out of it comes the issues of life. And so when he starts touching on those sensitive areas, sometimes people they just don't want to deal with it. They back up and they start coming up with different ideas in their mind about who they think God is and what he might be doing and what he's not doing and stuff like that. And it gradually starts to lead them away from God. Or they just give up on God altogether and say, God is this and God is that, and just kind of walk away bitterly. And so this healing journey is a very significant part of our Christian walk. And you actually cannot grow spiritually. You cannot grow in your relationship with God. You cannot grow spiritually until you complete some of these things. I cannot tell you how many things I've been healed from since I became a Christian. And I have been a Christian for at least 20 years. And so it's like when I first became a Christian, I had this idea, like, I was very well aware of the fact that I was broken. It was not something, some people lie to themselves and make it seem like they have it all together. I was not like that. I was like, I'm jacked up. I need some help. But I couldn't figure out not only how to help myself, but what exactly was the problem. Like, I didn't know. So I started kind of seeking God, like, hey, fix me, fix me, fix me, fix me, fix me. And he started to fix me. And I had this idea that at some point I would be fixed. Like, so he would deal with one thing and then I would deal with it and face it, which was very, very hard. Sometimes, man, like, wow, it really feels like you're being ripped in half, mentally and emotionally. And of course, that stuff starts to manifest physically. But then once all the fixing was done and he and I saw the end result of what was going on, it was like a relief. It was like, oh, like, I can rest, I can breathe, I can be more of me. And you talking about a weight being lifted, I know where that term comes from, because it definitely feels like something has been lifted off of you. You feel lighter, you feel more whole, you feel more focused, you feel happier. And so I would think that when I would experience those things, I'm fixed. Finally, I'm fixed. But there was more, and there was more, and there was more, and there was more. So now I'm 43 years old now. I've been a Christian for almost 20 years, and I have completely let go of this idea that someday I will be fixed. If that happens, or when that happens, I will be in heaven. I don't expect that anymore in this life, because God just kept revealing stuff to me, to the point where it's like, you know what? This is a lifelong process, and I had to accept that about myself. That there was never a place where I would get to where I would be fixed in this life. And so there, it's a journey and it's a process. And I don't think it will ever be completely completed on this side of life. And so you have to, walk with God and work with God and be prepared for those things, because they're coming. Like, God will want to move you into different areas of your life and show you more of who you are, for the purposes of seeing more of who he is. And he can't do that if you're carrying around all these baggages and wounds, and like they blur our perception. They blur our perception of life. They blur our perception of ourselves. They blur our perception of God. Like, they make us unable to pursue certain things that we need to do. They prevent us from having healthy relationships. They prevent us from connecting with God. And so it has this domino effect of problems throughout our life. And the sad part about it is that a lot of times we are not fully aware that they're there. And just because you're not aware of something does not mean it disappears. Like, I've met many people who just ignore their problems, and then they have this weird way of thinking that they're just going to go away, but they don't. They surface, they're in your subconscious mind, they're stored there, and they start surfacing in your life in different ways. So the way that you will know and identify them is by your attitude, by your character, how you handle things. If you're walking around with an attitude, if you're, standoffish when it comes to people, if you're bitter, if you're, perpetually unhappy, I should say, if you're depressed, like, if you continuously make bad decisions, you have bad habits, All of these things contribute. They are suppressed issues that you have not dealt with. Once you deal with those things, you will notice that your ability to do some things will become easier, to do things better will become easier. So until you deal with those things, you're kind of stuck in this repeating cycle. And actually, everybody is stuck in a repeating cycle because that's how life operates. They talk about the circle of life, and everybody is stuck in a repeating cycle. And so you determine what cycle you're stuck in. Like if you want to be stuck in a repeating cycle of what it means to live for God, then that's why you constantly have to feed your brain, and then you God expects you to grow in this particular character, and then you just keep repeating that, and you just keep going and going. Or you could be stuck in a dysfunctional cycle where you're continuously repeating and acting out of your hurt and your wounds and your misinformation and stuff like that. And so you have to decide, you have to get to a point in your life where you recognize that there is a problem and you want to set yourself out to fix it. It's not easy. Some of it is easy. Small stuff is easy, but some of it is very, very difficult. Like so difficult that you would run down the street in the opposite direction, screaming your head off, saying no, 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 no. But and I've felt that many times. And so, but when you run away, you're back in that cycle, and you're back stuck in that cycle, and then you're wondering why your life doesn't change, why you don't feel better, if stuff is ever going to change. I guess you start losing hope. It's a cycle, and it just keeps repeating. The bad part about it is as it repeats, it gets worse. And then if you're with God, as it repeats, you get better. So you just have to kind of figure out, what track do I want to be on? So you can run from your problems, but you can't run from yourself. So they're always there. So for me, I just wanted to deal with the stuff and move past it and become a better person. And I can definitely say that for the 20 years that I've been a Christian, I have become a much better person. I know a better person than what I would have ever been able to become on my own. And I know that every day, and I thank God every day. Like, I see the way that I was lost, I was confused, I was hurting, I was making a lot of bad decisions. And now I'm more stable, I'm more confident, I'm more driven. Like I just became a better person that I'm happy with. Like that I look in the mirror and say to myself, wow, like I'm really happy with the person that I am. And so, of course, I still need work. That doesn't make me perfect, but I see the progress, and I'm grateful for the progress. And so, kind of what I wanted to get into about this whole healing aspect is that you may get to a point that, like I was saying, you think you're healed. You think you've dealt with stuff, and you try to move forward, and the healing is in layers. And so I talked about, like, you keep needing healing, but sometimes you keep needing healing in the same area. So you might think that you are healed of it, but then that was only the top layer. So this is why I'm telling you, I gave up on this idea of being fixed because of me seeing this process throughout my life. So I would deal with a specific layer of it. I will feel a sense of relief. And then, few months, maybe years later, something else will come up that was connected to that thing. Because when you get wounded, it has this layering effect. Because it doesn't just, when you get wounded, it kind of fractures into your way of thinking. So it splinters into all these different things. So the best way that I can explain it is like, and I talk about this in my book, God, Why Am I Not Married? I talk about this in Reason 3. And I actually walk you through the process of not only identifying when you have a problem, but how to heal from it. And it's complicated, but I try to explain it the best way I can. So the way that I can, going back to my book, the way that I explain it in my book is that we all function on a basis of understanding. That's the way our brains work. And so that basis of understanding becomes the soil for the trees that grow in your mind, which are your ideas, your beliefs, and things like that. When you get wounded in your soil, your basis of understanding, the tree that grows is sick. It's poison. It doesn't grow right. So say that one specific tree is a belief about yourself. So now, because the poison is soiled, your belief about yourself affects all these different areas or thought process about yourself in your life. It's not just one thing. So I'll try to be as specific as I can because I really want you guys to get something out of this that you can use. So say you were abused as a kid, neglected, and then you grow up thinking that you're not worth very much. So if you grew up believing that you're not worth very much because of the neglect that you received as a kid, that understanding of your worth is going to filter into your academics, your 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 career, your relationships, how you relate to other people, your hobbies. Like it fractures into, and not only does it fracture into all these different areas, the beliefs get compounded with other experiences that you have that seem to reiterate or validify the fact that you're not worth very much. So if you have a breakup, if you lose something that you really like or valued, just different experiences in life that happen, then your mind will go back to, you see, that happened because I told you I'm not worth very much. And so you have this huge tree of broken thinking that has to be cut down. So God does not cut down the entire tree when you come to him. If he did, all the wiring in your brain. So if you can imagine that tree as the wiring in your brain, all that wiring in your brain will get disintegrate, and there's nothing there to replace it. So the equivalent of that in real life would be you going nuts, because we need our minds to function. I just said that. Like our brains holds our basis of understanding. So if you just cut the entire tree down, you don't know what to think of yourself now. So before you didn't know if you had worth or not, or you believed you were not worthy, but now you don't know what to think because there's nothing there. And you would go crazy, because how are you supposed to navigate life without any idea of yourself? Because that's how we operate out of life. And so God doesn't do that. He is merciful to the degree that he doesn't want to change you so badly that you end up dying in the process. So what he does is he trims the tree. He trims the areas. He starts on the outside with the bigger problems, and then he trims inward until he gets to a place where the tree can now grow in a much healthier way. So the trimming of the tree, and the Bible talks about this. It says, I'm the vine, you are the branches. Like, you have to be trimmed. You have to be pruned of those things that are affecting your perception. And so he'll start trimming the outside stuff. So instead of, say, for example, you have this idea that you're not worth very much, and again, it fractures into your relationships and other things, he will maybe start with, say, your job, and say, you pick this specific job. This is not what you wanted to do. This is not the gifting that you have. You picked this because it was safe, because you think you're not worth very much. So you don't even want to try to do the things that you're gifted in, because you're afraid of failing, because failing would now validify it will verify that you don't have a lot of worth. So he'll maybe start moving you career-wise and start getting you to embrace your talents, embrace your gifts, so that once you let the job go, now you have something to replace it with. And it's not like your whole reasoning of everything has to start from scratch. So he'll start there. Then next, he might start like on your relationship. Do you see this pattern that keeps reoccurring in your relationship? How are you contributing to that? Do you know that you're doing this because you feel like this? See, on the surface, everything that we do looks like it's caused by stuff that's going on outside of us. That's how, and so we feel, so when we think that, it makes us feel that we are kind of powerless to change things because this stuff outside of us is the issue. But really, the issue is more so of what is going on inside of us. And it's much more difficult for us to see what's going on inside of us than it is to pay attention to what's on outside of us. So we always, oh, he's the problem. Oh, she's the problem. My boss is the problem. This is the problem. My education is the problem. We look at all these things outside of us and we think they are the problem, when it's not, because everything outside of us is simply a reflection of what is going on inside of us. So now you have to go back to the source of the root. Okay, why is these things happening like this? So God might point out to this pattern that you see in your relationship that to you is about the other person. But God will try to show you that, no, you're contributing to, even if it is the other person, you're still contributing to this problem. So what about you is contributing to this problem? And so you start to do some self-examination. Oh, I respond this way and I get offended really fast because I feel worthless, or I'm very like snippy and short-tempered and guarded because I have abandonment issues. And so he starts to uproot these things in your soil, so to speak, so that you can deal with them, so they can be pruned, and then he can kind of move on to the next thing. And so this thing happens in layers. So you might think, okay, I deal with this issue with my job stuff, I feel free, I'm more of myself, I'm doing my passion, then boom, here comes something with your relationships, and it's still connected to the neglect issue, but it's a deeper layer of it. And so he will clean that up. And then again, here's another layer, here's another layer. And so it's a lot. Like, it has been things that God has dealt with me about, that I mean, I'm talking about years of pruning, and I feel like I'm fine in this particular area, because even if I think like it's going to take a lifetime to be healed, I will feel like, oh, I'm fine in this area. Like, I might need to work in this area, but I'm okay in this area. And then something will happen. And again, like everybody else, I start looking at all the things that's going on around me. And I think that that's the issue. Then it takes for me to go inward. And then once I go inward, and of course I ask God for his guidance and stuff like that, boom, I can't even tell you how this has annoyed me. Because it will be like, once I go inward and I start doing self-examination and I start having God, and it's like, boom, this is connected to the same stuff. Oh my goodness. Like, it's annoying. I'm not even gonna lie. It's annoying, it's frustrating. But what choice do you have? You have two choices. You have two choices: to move forward in your healing or not. That's it. And whatever you do is going to determine your quality of life. So it's annoying. As you can tell, I've had some recent experience with this, which is a little bit of where this is coming from. And so yeah, so it will be like, this is connected to the same stuff that I was going through before. It's just on a deeper level, and you can deal with it, you cannot deal with it. Whenever you deal with it, you feel a little bit more centered and happy and whole. But it's easy. It's very easy to get the impression that after you go through these things, you're done. And sometimes I have even felt like, what is wrong with me that this thing is still there, and it's not. I see the progress. But I've been a Christian for so long that you have this idea in your head, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people are guilty of this. I've even heard people speak about this many times, and then I feel like, oh, that's normal, and then I do it again. And the thing that I do again is having this expectation of myself that I should act and do things this particular way as a Christian, especially after being a Christian for so long. And then you put these standards on yourself, and then you feel like, why am I still dealing with this? Why is this still bothering me? Why am I still making these type of mistakes? I should be further along than this by now. And it gets frustrating. And then, you hard on yourself. I'm very, very guilty of that. And it's difficult. It's very, very difficult. But again, you have two choices. I'll say it again. You have two choices. I'm telling myself, you have two choices. You either move forward in your healing or you don't. That's choice you have. And that choice is yours. God is not going to force you to move forward in your healing. But what will happen is that you'll keep staying in that cycle until you decide to do it. Until you decide, you know what, I'm sick of this. I want to be better. I want to do better. I want to live better. I want more than this. That's when you're going to see change and start working on yourself. But so it's very difficult. And it's a lot of layers. And it reminds me of an onion. Of course, that's the analogy that people use a lot of the time when they talk about layers of stuff. It is definitely like that. And I guess at some point you just have to get comfortable with the fact that You need God. And it's not just for that one thing or to get this one area and stuff like that, but for you to understand that this is a continuous process that I promise you, on your own, you would never reach that level of healing and depth in yourself on your own than you can do with God, because our minds is just too limited. We're too blind to some certain things. We don't even totally understand how we work inside. Not to mention the mechanics like the lungs, the heart, but this, how the spirit, the soul, the mind, and all that stuff work together to create you and how you act and what you do. Like, we don't even fully understand how those things work. We need help. Like, we need help. We were not meant to try to navigate this life by ourselves. Like, it's too complicated. We're too complicated. Creation is complicated, and we need the guidance and help of the Holy Spirit, which the Bible again talks about. I will send you a helper. Thank God for the helper, because I know if I didn't have the helper, I'll be lost in the jungle somewhere naked eating bugs. You know what I'm saying? Like, mentally, that's where I would be, because it's just too complicated. Like, yeah. So that's one of the struggles or problems with healing, is that you can never get to a place where you're done, where you feel like you're done. Even if you do, you're going to be surprised to find out that you're not. And one thing else that I would mention is that because these have been weak areas, or areas because the soil that was planted, that the seed that was planted in the soil that was bad was put there by the enemy. And so it grew, and he knows that it grew. But the fact that it was able to grow shows the potential to regrow again. So even if you get to a place where you feel like you're healed, he will try to bring it back up to you again, because it's going to be a weak spot for you. So even though you might feel like, oh, I've gotten over this, I'm not insecure anymore, and then all of a sudden scenarios will come up where that same insecurity will try to rear its head again. And you'll be like, well, I thought I was done with this. And so it's almost like, the way that I think of it is almost like AA, like they talk about being alcoholic. And I don't know a lot about it, but I'm just going by like stuff I've seen on movies and what people say, is that you always have to be on guard of your alcoholism resurfacing, especially in high tension and high stressful situations. And it is the same thing when it comes to your healing. So when something happens that really rattles you, that really hurts you, the potential for those old wounds to start trying to regrow is there, and the devil is all too happy to come and put it right back in your front of your face and say, see, I told you, you're this, you're that, you're not this, you're not that, this, and it will resonate with you. It will affect you because of the healing process that you already went through. So it's always going to be like a sensitive spot, if nothing for the fact that you're like, I don't want to go through this again. Like, your mind is like, wait a minute. A lot of times it's enough for you to fight it off, because you're like, no, I don't want to go down this road again. And so you kind of are able to resist it, but he's going to keep trying to bring it back up. And it doesn't necessarily mean you're not healed in that specific area. So let me say that too. So when I talk about the healing layers, it's a little bit different from you being healed and then the enemy trying to make you think you're not. And so you just have to resist it, especially if you had a clear transformation that you can identify and say, yeah, I changed from that. And I know I did. This thing is just trying to rear its head again, and you need to deal with it and remind yourself of what you've been through and what you have overcome, so that you can, keep moving forward and not get stuck back in the same rut. But it's complicated. It's very complicated. And so that's why myself, I'm a life coach. A life and relationship coach, and I specialize in growth and transformation for this reason, because I know how difficult it is, because I'm definitely absolutely speaking from experience. Like, it's been a long journey, it's been a hard journey, and so I'm able to help people understand their journey a little bit better, just because of how difficult mine has been. And so that's what I want to say about healing. It's a layered thing. The most important thing is that you're honest with yourself, and you don't run from what you're being shown or what you're seeing in yourself, and just try to deal with it. I don't want to say try to deal with it. But if you have to go at a slower pace, just do what works for you. The main thing is that you don't lie to yourself, because some people are moving at a slower pace because they actually don't want to deal with it. and the consequences from that will come. So yeah, but that's it. So I feel like I'm just going to keep repeating myself, and I don't want to do that. So, but that's it about healing. If you guys have any questions or comments or anything like that, or you want a free session with me to kind of dive into some of your own stuff, I am more than willing to do that. And that's it. So tune in next week where I'm going to be discussing mean Christians, which is a whole other issue, next week at 12:30 p.m. on Fridays. And so that's it for today. You guys, please make sure you like, share, follow my content, subscribe, and share this with somebody that we all need healing. So I know this is relevant to a lot of people who probably don't even want to admit it, but please share this with anybody that you think it can help them, because we all need healing. Yeah. So anyway, you guys be blessed. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you next week at 12:30. Bye.